Hybe's headquarters in Yongsan, Seoul, isn't just a building. It's a 100,000 square meter complex that houses recording studios, practice rooms, a museum, a cafe, a convenience store, and living facilities, all under one roof. BTS helped fund the construction of that building, not metaphorically, not symbolically. Their revenue literally financed it. And yet, what actually goes on inside those walls, in the daily routines, the private pressures, the unwritten rules that shape seven men's lives, most of that never makes it onto a Weverse post or a behind-the-scenes clip. Armies know the music, they know the interviews, they've watched thousands of hours of content, but there's a specific layer of BTS's life at Hybe, structural, personal, sometimes uncomfortable, that rarely gets discussed in fandom spaces. Some of it is fascinating, some of it is genuinely sobering, all of it is real. So before the next comeback, before the next Bangtan bomb, before the next carefully produced moment, what does it actually look like to be a BTS member living and working inside the machine they helped build? Number 7. The man who lives in the studio, Suga. Min Yoongi, stage name Suga, producer alias August D, has one of the most documented work habits in K-pop, and it isn't a PR narrative. It's a pattern that spans over a decade of verified footage, interviews, and his own spoken words. Inside Hybe, Suga operates on a schedule that most people would describe as unsustainable, and he has described it the same way himself, without apology. In the 2018 documentary Burn the Stage, which gave fans one of the most unfiltered looks at BTS's daily existence, Suga appeared visibly exhausted during performances, not in a dramatic sense, but in the clinical way that comes from chronic sleep deprivation. The documentary showed him performing through physical pain, specifically a shoulder injury from a 2012 car accident that required surgery and continued to affect him for years. He didn't hide it. He also didn't stop. That combination, transparency about struggle, paired with absolute refusal to slow down, is core to understanding how he actually operates inside the Hybe building. Suga's personal studio within Hybe is not perk or a luxury. It is, by his own account, his primary residence for long stretches of time. He has said in multiple interviews and in the Suchika talk show he hosts that he functions better at night, that his creative output peaks in the hours most people are asleep, and that the studio is where he feels most like himself. This isn't a curated artist persona. He produced his mixtape August D in 2016 largely on his own time, between BTS schedules, in exactly the kind of overnight sessions he still favors. That mixtape, released for free with no commercial rollout, addressed his history of depression, OCD, and social phobia. He put those words on record before mental health discourse in K-pop was remotely normalized, and he did it without Hybe prompting him or framing it as a campaign. Inside Hybe's production infrastructure, Suga holds an unusual position. He isn't just a member of the group, he is a certified music producer with credits extending far beyond BTS. He has produced tracks for IU, Psy, Max, and others under the alias August D, working through Hybe's internal production channels. This is not a common arrangement. Most idol group members, even at the highest level, remain primarily talent, rather than active contributors to the label's broader music ecosystem. Suga negotiated his way into a different structure, and the evidence is in the production credits. His mandatory military service, which began in September 2023 under the social service worker pathway due to his shoulder surgery, shifted his physical presence away from Hybe. But his production work didn't fully stop. Licensed arrangements meant pre-existing collaborations continued through release. The distinction matters because it illustrates how deeply embedded he is in the creative machinery of the label, not just the performance side of it. What doesn't get discussed enough is the psychological cost of this kind of immersion. Suga has been candid in Burn the Stage, in lyric analysis interviews, in the Road to D-Day documentary on Disney Plus, about the moments when he questioned whether the work was worth the personal toll. He's spoken about periods where he couldn't distinguish his sense of self from his output, where the studio stopped being a refuge and became a trap. That's not a sentiment extracted from a carefully worded press release. It's documented across years of his own words in Korean, translated and archived. The fact that he keeps returning to the studio, keeps choosing it, keeps building inside it, is its own kind of statement about who he is. There's something that gets missed in the way fandom typically discusses Suga, which tends to flatten him into either a cool, detached genius or a soft, emotionally layered human, depending on the moment. The documented reality is more specific. This is a man who grew up poor in Daegu, who slept in a studio before he was famous because he had nowhere else to go, and who now has his name on the walls of the most powerful music label in South Korea, and still chooses to spend his nights there. Not because he has to, because for Min Young-gi, the building isn't where he works, it's where he exists. And if Suga's relationship with Hybe is that of a man who never really left the studio, the next member's relationship with it is almost the opposite.
Number 6. The Weight of the First Chair, RM. Kim Namjoon joined Big Hit Entertainment in 2010, 2 years before BTS existed as a group. He was the first trainee signed under Bang Si-hook's vision of a hip-hop-focused act, and that founding position has shaped every single thing about how he exists inside what eventually became Hybe. He didn't just grow up in the building. In a very real sense, the building grew up around him, and that distinction has never been a small thing. As BTS's leader and primary English-speaking spokesperson, RM occupies a role that has no clean parallel in any other group at Hybe or in K-pop broadly. The responsibilities are institutional, not just ceremonial. When BTS addressed the United Nations General Assembly in September 2021, speaking on climate action as part of the SDG Moment event, RM delivered the speech in English, on a stage used by heads of state, in front of a global media pool. He did it again the following year. Those appearances weren't handled by Hybe's PR department in the conventional sense. RM wrote and prepared those speeches with input from the team, but the intellectual framing, the language, the ideas, those were his. He's been publicly documented as a reader across an enormous range of subjects, from philosophy to contemporary art to poetry, and his speeches reflect that. This is not an image. It is the output of a specific kind of mind that has been cultivating itself seriously for years. Inside Hybe, RM's position as leader means he absorbs institutional pressure in ways the other members don't. In the Break the Silence documentary released in 2020, he spoke with unusual directness about the loneliness of the role, not as a complaint, but as a structural observation. He noted that the leader carries things the other members shouldn't have to, and that some of that weight simply doesn't get put down between schedules. For a man in his mid-20s at the time of filming, that level of self-awareness about institutional function was striking. He wasn't performing vulnerability, he was describing a job. His solo album, Indigo, released in December 2022, is the clearest public window into how RM navigates the gap between his Hybe life and his interior one. The album took years to build, involved collaborations with Erykah Badu, Anderson .Paak, Tableau, and several Korean indie artists, and was described by RM in press materials and interviews as an attempt to document who he was before his 30s, a deliberate archiving of a self he knew was about to change. The album sold over 1 million copies. It was also reviewed seriously by music critics outside the K-pop ecosystem, which is rarer than it sounds. What rarely surfaces in fandom conversation is the specificity of RM's art practice outside of music. He is a documented collector of contemporary Korean art with a particular focus on works by Korean artists navigating questions of identity and modernity. He has visited museums and galleries across Seoul, New York, London, and Basel. Many of these visits photographed and posted on his personal Instagram without caption or context. He has met with curators and artists in professional capacities, not as a celebrity dropping in for a photo, but as someone who knows the work and can discuss it. Several Korean art world figures have confirmed this in interviews. Hybe benefits from this cultural capital, but RM built it independently. He also lives differently than most of his members. Unlike the shared dormitory arrangement that defined BTS's early years and still applies to some members, RM has maintained his own separate living space, a fact he's referenced in various contexts, including in discussions about needing solitude to function creatively. Inside Hybe's walls, he's the leader, the face, the institutional anchor. Outside those walls, he is a person who reads late, visits galleries alone, and writes things that don't become press releases. That tension between the public weight of the first chair and the private architecture of a very specific mind is what makes his story at Hybe genuinely unlike anyone else's in the building. He didn't just sign a contract, he co-authored the institution. And the next member on this list shares that institution, but has navigated it through a completely different door.
Number 5. The one who chose to go first. Jin. Kim Sek-jin did not grow up wanting to be an idol. That isn't a fan narrative or a reframing done for artistic interest. It is the documented origin of how he ended up at what became Hybe at all. In 2011, a Big Hit Entertainment staff member spotted him getting off a bus near Konkuk University, where he was enrolled as a film studies student, and asked if he'd ever considered the entertainment industry. He hadn't. He was studying acting for film, not performing for stages, and the two are genuinely different disciplines. He signed anyway, which means the oldest member of the most commercially successful K-pop group in history entered his trainee period with no prior idol training, no dance background, no vocal coaching history. He learned everything inside the building. That context matters because it shapes everything about how Jin relates to Hybe as an institution. The other members who joined as teenagers brought with them varying degrees of pre-existing ambition toward idol life. Jin came in sideways, already an adult by Korean standards, already enrolled in a university program with a different future in mind. He completed his degree at Konkuk University while simultaneously training and then debuting, earning his BA in Art and Design, later completing a graduate program at Hanyang Cyber University. He is the only BTS member to have completed a full undergraduate degree during the peak years of the group's activity, which tells you something about how he manages compartmentalization. Inside Hybe, Jin occupied a specific social role that the members themselves have described in various interview contexts. He was the mood anchor, not the emotional processor, that role belongs to others, but the person who broke tension, who fed people, who made sure the shared spaces felt livable. This wasn't assigned, it was a function he performed naturally, and it is documented across years of BTS content, from early Bangtan Bombs to the In the Somme series. Members have explicitly credited him in Korean language interviews with keeping the group's internal atmosphere functional during high-pressure periods. What changes the entire texture of Jin's story at Hybe is December 2022. He was the first BTS member to enlist for mandatory military service, a decision that, given the years of government debate over whether BTS should receive an exemption, carried significant institutional weight. South Korean law requires able-bodied men to serve approximately 2 years. The group had received a limited deferment, allowing them to delay until age 30. Jin turned 30 in December 2022 and enlisted that same month, choosing active duty rather than a social service alternative. He was assigned to the 5th Infantry Division, a frontline army unit stationed near the border region of Yeoncheon, Gyeonggi Province. During his service, something happened that didn't receive as much coverage as it deserved. He was selected to serve as an assistant drill instructor for new recruits.
This is not a routine assignment. It requires demonstrated performance evaluations, physical standards, and the assessed capacity to train and lead other soldiers. He held that role for a portion of his service, which means the man who spent the previous decade performing for stadiums spent part of his military years teaching basic soldiering to 18-year-olds who almost certainly knew exactly who he was. The structural absurdity of that situation has its own kind of weight. He was discharged on June 12, 2024. When he walked out of the base at Yunqian that morning, the crowd waiting outside was estimated in the thousands. Fans had traveled from multiple countries. Media coverage ran internationally. Hybe's stock moved. He had been gone for approximately 18 months, largely unreachable, with no social media access and no content production, a full removal from the ecosystem that his group had built. And yet, the moment he stepped back into civilian life, the institutional pull of Hybe resumed immediately. Schedules, appearances, planning meetings for his solo chapter, the machine had never really stopped running in his absence. The interesting question, the one his story at Hybe raises but doesn't answer neatly, is what it means for a person to re-enter an institution they helped build after being completely removed from it for a year and a half. Jin has spoken about his military experience in terms of genuine personal growth, not as something he endured, but as something that clarified him. Whether that clarity changes how he exists inside Hybe going forward is, as of now, still being written. And the next member's story inside that building has been defined not by absence, but an almost relentless visible presence and the specific cost that comes with it.
Number 4, the director in the dance studio, J-Hope. Jun Ho-sok, known globally as J-Hope, occupies a role within the Hybe ecosystem that is often sanitized by promotional material, but is in reality one of the most physically demanding positions in the entire company. Long before Hybe was a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate, J-Hope was an underground dancer in Gwangju, winning national battles with his crew, Neuron. When he arrived at Big Hit Entertainment in 2010, his dance proficiency was already established, but he had to adapt those raw skills into the highly synchronized, structured world of K-pop choreography. Inside Hybe's practice rooms, which are now state-of-the-art facilities equipped with specialized shock-absorbing floors, acoustic paneling, and multi-angle camera systems, J-Hope is not just a performer, he is the de facto dance captain. This title is not honorary. BTS members and Hybe performance directors, including longtime choreographer Son Sangduk, have documented that J-Hope is the one who leads the physical synchronization of the group. During rehearsals, which historically lasted up to 10 to 12 hours a day during comeback preparations, he is the member who monitors the monitors, spots minor timing discrepancies of fractions of a second, and coordinates the correction of angles. The members have openly admitted in Korean broadcasts and behind-the-scenes documentaries like Bring the Soul that while RM leads the group verbally, J-Hope leads them physically, and his authority in the practice room is obsolete. This role carries an immense physical and mental toll that rarely makes the highlight reels. Years of executing high-impact choreography, such as the intense footwork of DNA or the acrobatic elements of Mic Drop, have taken a verified toll on his joints. Hybe maintains an in-house physical therapy and rehabilitation suite staffed by professional sports therapists to manage these exact issues, and J-Hope is a frequent user of these facilities to keep his body functioning at a performance level. The transition to BTS's Chapter 2 highlighted just how much J-Hope's work ethic dominates his time inside the building. In July 2022, he became the first member to launch a solo album, Jack in the Box, which departed from his usual bright public persona to explore darker, raw hip-hop themes. To prepare for this release and his subsequent historic headlining set at the Lollapalooza Music Festival in Chicago, where he performed a full-length set solo for over an hour, J-Hope essentially lived in the Hybe dance studios.
Documentary footage from J-Hope in the Box captures him rehearsing alone in the empty, cavernous practice rooms late into the night, sweating through multiple shirts, reviewing video playback frame by frame, and micromanaging every lighting cue and audio transition. He did not delegate this preparation. He oversaw every technical aspect of the performance himself, working directly with Hybe's production staff to ensure the live band arrangements matched his exact specifications. Following this intense period of solo activity, J-Hope enlisted in the military in April 2023, serving in the 36th Infantry Division in Wonju. Much like Jin, his leadership skills were recognized, and he was appointed as an assistant drill instructor, a position requiring top-tier physical fitness and instructional capability. He completed his service in October 2024 and immediately returned to the Hybe infrastructure, continuing his work on dance-centric projects like his docuseries Hope on the Street, which traced his dance roots across several global cities. Within the halls of Hybe, J-Hope's legacy is defined by this uncompromising standard of physical execution. He is the standard against which newer Hybe trainees are measured, a living blueprint of the discipline required to transition from a local street dancer to a global icon. Yet while J-Hope's influence is written in the sweat on the studio floors, the next member's story is defined by a completely different kind of pressure, one that took place not in the rehearsal rooms, but under the constant scrutiny of the company's vocal booths.
Number 3. The perfectionist in the vocal booth, Jimin. Park Jimin, known simply as Jimin, entered Big Hit Entertainment in 2012 with a background that set him apart from the other trainees, but also created a unique set of pressures inside the company. As a top student in the modern dance department at Busan High School of Arts, his physical movement was already highly developed, but his vocal training was practically non-existent. Because he joined the lineup only about 6 months before BTS's official debut, the shortest training period of any member, he was forced to undergo an accelerated, high-intensity vocal adaptation program inside the company's training rooms. During this grueling period, he survived on as little as 2 hours of sleep a night, practicing dance and vocals until dawn to catch up to his peers. Jimin has since revealed in interviews that he faced the threat of elimination from the final debut lineup multiple times during those 6 months, a constant instability that created a persistent sense of urgency. This compressed timeline created a deeply ingrained perfectionism that has defined his entire career within the Hybe infrastructure. Unlike the rappers who entered the company with established styles, Jimin had to construct his vocal identity from the ground up, dealing with a naturally high-pitched tenor range that required specialized control. The documentary series Burn the Stage captured the raw reality of this struggle, showing Jimin backstage during a tour, visibly distressed and self-critical over minor vocal cracks during live performances. He openly discussed his fear of letting the group down, revealing a level of internal pressure that went far beyond typical performance anxiety. To combat this, Jimin developed a habit of using Hybe's vocal booths and practice rooms at all hours, often rehearsing vocals long after group schedules ended. This dedication is not just an anecdote, it is documented in the 2023 Weverse documentary Jimin's Production Diary, which provides a detailed look at the creation of his debut solo album, Face. The documentary shows him sitting for hours in Hybe's production rooms, collaborating with producers P-Dog and GHST Loop, fighting creative blocks and expressing deep vulnerability about his isolation and mental state during the pandemic. The documentary captures a specific moment where he records a single vocal line dozens of times, tweaking the inflection at the direction of P-Dog, demonstrating the grueling, repetitive nature of Hybe's studio standards. It shows him recording vocals for the track Like Crazy over and over, analyzing the waveform of his voice and pushing his vocal range to its limit to capture a specific emotional tone.
His meticulousness paid off when Like Crazy debuted at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in April 2023, making him the first Korean solo artist to achieve this feat. However, the physical toll of achieving this level of performance is substantial. Jimin's combination of contemporary dance and sharp hip-hop styling has resulted in chronic neck and back strain, issues that require regular management by Hybe's internal medical staff. Even with these physical challenges, Jimin's commitment to vocal stability remained central to his routine prior to his military enlistment in December 2023. During his service in the 5th Infantry Division, the same division where Jin served as an assistant instructor, Jimin's discipline remained evident as he graduated at the top of his training class, receiving the Exemplary Trainee Award. This standard of excellence is what Jimin demands of himself every time he enters a Hybe recording space. His story inside the building is one of constant self-evaluation, an ongoing battle to align his live vocal delivery with his own exacting standards. Yet, while Jimin's struggle has been fought largely in the quiet isolation of the vocal booth, the next member's experience at Hybe has been shaped by a very different set of aesthetic demands, one where visual presentation and personal identity are constantly negotiated under the corporate lens.
Number 2. The boundary of the corporate image, V. Kim Tae-young, who performs under the moniker V, has managed a complex relationship with the creative boundaries of Hybe, often pushing the label to accommodate his distinct artistic preferences rather than conforming to the standard K-pop formula. V possesses a deep, warm baritone, a vocal range that is relatively rare in the industry and stands in sharp contrast to the high-pitched tenors typical of modern pop groups. From his early days at Big Hit Entertainment, he expressed a profound interest in genres like jazz, soul, and vintage R&B, styles that did not naturally align with the label's hip-hop and electronic pop foundations. For years, V's personal musical taste existed quietly behind the scenes, occasionally surfacing in self-composed tracks like Scenery and Winter Bear, which were released on SoundCloud rather than through official commercial channels. The true shift in his creative autonomy within the company occurred with the preparation for his solo album Layover, released in September 2023. Instead of utilizing Hybe's standard in-house production team led by P-Dog, V took a highly unusual institutional path. He personally initiated a partnership with Min Hee-jin, the creative director and CEO of the Hybe sublabel ADR, known for her work with New Jeans. This was a significant departure from standard company protocols, as it crossed internal label boundaries to bring in an outside creative vision. V has stated in interviews that he wanted someone who could capture his authentic, everyday self, rather than a polished, idol-like persona. Under Min's direction, the album's visual and auditory concept was built entirely around V's personal aesthetic, featuring lo-fi R&B tracks, music videos shot on film in natural light, and the prominent inclusion of his pet dog, Yeontan, in the promotional imagery. Despite this non-traditional and subdued musical approach, the album broke commercial records, selling over 1.6 million copies on its release day alone, proving that V's personal artistic instincts had a massive global market. This level of personal curation was unprecedented for a BTS solo release, showcasing V's willingness to bypass corporate structures to preserve his artistic integrity. Outside of his music, these acting ambitions have also been subject to the company's tight scheduling constraints. In 2016, he became the first BTS member to debut as an actor, playing a supporting role in the historical drama Hwarang, the Poet Warrior Youth. Despite receiving positive reviews and subsequent offers from domestic and international production companies, V was unable to take on further acting roles due to the relentless scheduling demands of BTS's global activities, illustrating the personal trade-offs required by the group's massive success.
When it came time for his military service in December 2023, V chose a path that surprised many observers given his laid-back, artistic public image. He applied for and was accepted into the Special Duty Team, SDT, an elite counter-terrorism unit under the Republic of Korea Army Capital Defense Command. This unit requires passing rigorous physical evaluations, including advanced martial arts, rappelling from helicopters, and specialized urban combat tactical training. He was subsequently deployed to the Military Police Patrol Unit in Chuncheon, Gangwon Province. His successful enlistment and service in such a high-intensity unit demonstrated a physical capability and resilience that contradicted the soft-spoken, whimsical character often portrayed in media. V's time inside the Hybe structure has been a continuous negotiation between the demands of a global brand and his own quiet, stubborn pursuit of personal identity. He has consistently carved out spaces for his own tastes, proving that even within a highly structured corporate environment, an individual artist can maintain a distinct voice. Yet, while V's journey has been defined by his search for artistic independence, the final member on this list has spent his entire adult life inside the Hybe ecosystem, serving as the ultimate test case for the label's ability to build a global pop star.
Number 1. The trainee raised by the label, Jungkook. Jungkook, the youngest member of BTS, represents the absolute realization of the talent cultivation system that built Hybe from a struggling agency into an international conglomerate. Jungkook entered Big Hit Entertainment in 2011 at just 13 years old after participating in auditions for the talent show Superstar K3. Despite receiving offers from 7 different, more established agencies, he chose the relatively unknown Big Hit after seeing RM rap in person. Because he joined the company at such a formative age, his developmental years were spent entirely within the corporate infrastructure, living in shared dormitories and attending middle and high school while balancing an intense training schedule. The company recognized his raw potential early on. In 2012, Bang Si-hyuk sent him to Los Angeles to study dance at the renowned academy Movement Lifestyle to refine his performance style. This was a significant financial risk for the company at the time, which was operating with limited capital. The older members of BTS have repeatedly documented in various media formats that they practically raised Jungkook during his adolescence, helping him adjust to life away from his family in Busan. This unique upbringing created a performer of immense versatility, capable of serving as the group's main vocalist, lead dancer, and sub-rapper. This intense trajectory was not without its psychological pressure. Jungkook has spoken in documentaries like Break the Silence about his struggles with self-identity, having spent his entire youth in the public eye without a normal childhood. He admitted to wondering who he would be if he were not a member of BTS, a question that many child stars face, but one that was magnified by the scale of the group's global success. By the time BTS transitioned to their solo chapters, Jungkook was positioned as the primary representative of Hybe's global pop ambitions. His debut solo album, Golden, released in November 2023, was engineered to target the mainstream Western market, consisting entirely of English-language tracks. The production of the album involved collaborations with prominent Western producers and artists, including Andrew Watt, Circuit, Blood Pop, and Jack Harlow, coordinated through Hybe's US-based infrastructure, Hybe America. The strategy was deliberate, aimed at securing mainstream radio play and playlisting in the West, which required Jungkook to adapt his vocal style to match contemporary American pop trends. The promotional campaign for Golden was a logistical tour de force, featuring high-profile performances on The Today Show and a surprise pop-up concert on a TSX stage in New York's Times Square that drew tens of thousands of spectators.
These appearances were executed with the precision of a major Western pop rollout, proving that Hybe could operate on the same scale as legacy American record labels. However, this global push was cut short by the reality of South Koreans' conscription laws. In December 2023, Jungkook enlisted in the military alongside Jimin, utilizing the companion enlistment system to serve in the same unit. Following his basic military training, he was assigned the role of a culinary specialist, or military cook, in his division. Unlike standard infantry duties, a military cook must rise before dawn, often at 4 a.m., to prepare breakfast and work continuously through dinner service, handling heavy kitchen equipment and managing food supply logistics in high-pressure environments. This transition from performing in Times Square to working in a military kitchen within the span of a few weeks highlighted the stark contrast between his global celebrity status and the mandatory civic duties of a South Korean citizen. Inside Hybe, Jungkook is the ultimate success story, a trainee who grew up in their hallways and went on to top the global charts. His life has been defined by the company's evolution, serving as the bridge between its humble origins and its current status as a global entertainment powerhouse, proving that the biggest secret of Hybe's success wasn't the building itself, but the years of raw human discipline built inside it.